So you may be wondering about the hat.
My boyfriend an apple, I gave my boyfriend a pear. I gave my boyfriend a kiss on the lips and I kicked him down the stairs. I kicked him over England, I kicked him over France. I kicked him over a football match and he lost his underpants.
I'd love to see your maps. I love maps. Send me map. Be kind to yourself.
Coming home, it's coming, football's coming home. It's coming home, it's coming home, it's coming, football's coming home.
I can definitely finish 4 books in 3 months. Of course I can. And then the introvert part of me has come along a few days later and gone, what did you do? Oh my god.
Wait! But wait, why not?
Do you get a notification saying I'm recording?
Not yet. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Because for me it says for legal purposes I'm supposed to tell you that I am recording this call. How do you do that?
Mic check 1
Novi,
2 4
please,
1 2
this
4
is not a podcast.
I once took a train from Moscow to
Novi,
Vladivostok.
please, this is
It took
not
me
a
7
podcast.
days. Wait, it's not?
Yeah. Yeah. I try to sound like a customer care. It did not. Anyway, it's strange because that's a stereotype for Indians, right? Because a lot of call centers are in India, and then it's funny how people who are non-Indians, when they interact with Indians, they feel they're walking on broken glass. They have to tiptoe around. They try not to offend. And I always find it funny because I don't mind it. I mean, stereotypes are supposed to be, they're supposed to be funny. Yeah. So I don't take offense or anything, but when I feel bad for the opposite person because they are struggling, they're trying their best not to, offend me. It happened with one of my Australian friends. Okay. They were excited to tell me that they had Indian food. But then they almost slipped. They said like it was spicy and I couldn't handle it. And I don't remember the exact context. So it was something like they wanted to say that it's not a big deal for you. But then they were like, should I say it? I'm like, no, it's fine. It's fine.
No, I grew up eating this particular kind of food. It's fine.
Yeah, Indians like spices. It's everybody knows that. It's not offensive. So, but
have you come across the Goodness Gracious Me show from the 90s? Noughties.
No.
It's a British comedy show by British Indians, and they do this amazing sketch where they go out for an English and they ask for the blandest food they can get. Oh, I just want it really bland. The blandest thing on the menu. It was really
yeah.
I like it when they turn things like that completely on their head.
Hey, wait, I think I've watched an episode. You might have shared it in a chat sometime.
Yeah.
Okay. I just remembered we did not do formal introductions. So, yeah, just for the sake of my YouTube video, I'll say hi.
Hi.
Hi. Today we are talking with Lorem, which is is something that I do not address you directly. I call you Lorem Puffling. That is because and that is because you are Hufflepuff.
I am.
Oh, yes. Oh, Hufflepuff Pride. Yes, I can see that. It almost looked like a Slytherin symbol for some reason.
Yeah, didn't it? Maybe I'm cunning. Oh, there's light on.
Okay. Now I can see. Yeah. It looked like a snake. But then, that reminds me. Did you watch that honey badger video on YouTube? Have you watched those? I did not know that.
Yeah.
There is one video on YouTube about like a 10-year-old YouTube video about honey badger tackling lions or something.
Yeah, they're scary.
It's amazing. And there's one more by Aussie Man Reviews where there's a badger in a stranglehold inside a python. And then and that video is like it's funny because of the commentary by Aussie Man. So he's like, the badger is saying, "Are you sure you want to commit to this?" Because the python is and then the python, and it's just it gets out of the stranglehold and then it kills the python and it drags it back to its burrow. But then at that moment there are couple of jackals which try to get the dead body of that python away from. So there's like a tug of war with the python being the rope in the middle, and then the badger fights the couple of jackals as well, and eventually it is. So it's actually a 3 versus 1 fight in which the badger won, and and the python ended up. So that's like, so if in all the and that particular video I also claimed that the badger is the most fearless animal on land. So it's like an official thing. Apparently, the badger does not know something called fear. There's no emotion called fear in the badger. Nothing. It's indestructible, basically. So
one of my friends, he was an RAF cadet, and when he was a teenager, they were doing this like night maneuvers. So basically, it was a series of obstacle courses and catch the flag.
Okay.
And the opposing team was like creeping up on him. So he was like, I know, I'll just scoot down in this convenient hole and hide. And he hid for a bit. And then he realized that he was in a badger set and the badgers were coming and they chased him 3 fields over.
Wow.
I'm like, don't mess with badgers, dude.
But that's similar to the analogy I get for that in the Hogwarts houses as well, because Hufflepuff is something nobody takes them seriously, and even in the books nobody did. But then if you take their house representative, the animals, badgers can both lions as well as snakes. I mean, eagle gets because it's a sky animal, but mostly the skies. Badgers can't get to them. But then the lions and the snakes, they don't stand a chance against badgers.
No.
Especially they don't look dangerous, right?
No.
They have
they do.
Apart from their reputation.
I came across a drunk badger once. That was quite scary. That was the closest I've ever been because it was drunk, so it wasn't like interested in trying to go for us or running away. Yeah, my grandparents had a plum tree and they didn't pick all the plums and they rotted on the floor. So there was all this fermented fruit and he'd eaten all the fermented fruit and he was just wobbling around the garden. But he was huge and he had so many big teeth. And I was like, I don't understand why Hufflepuffs aren't scary.
Yeah, after watching those couple of, because I've never seen a badger. This is disclosure. I have never seen a badger in real life, but on the internet and through like the videos and pictures, they're like fluffy and cute and they don't look that dangerous. But when you look at these Nat Geo videos of them, fighting like 4-on-1, fighting 4 versus 1 with lions and then killing pythons and man, you don't want to mess with a badger.
No.
So you are a Hufflepuff, I am a Ravenclaw, and that's because we met on a Harry Potter themed website. So this is a question that I ask everybody on the podcast, which is not a podcast. That is, everybody has their own Harry Potter story, right? Like everybody I've spoken to, like no 2 stories are alike because each of us were at a different age when we were introduced to the books, or the younger ones were introduced to the movies first before they read the books. And so that's how like everybody has their own story. So what's your Harry Potter story?
So everyone kept telling me about this amazing book that I should totally read. And I'm exactly the kind of person that goes, everyone likes it, I won't like it. Like, no, it can't be that good. Yeah. So I refuse to read it.
You don't want to be mainstream.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm way too cool. It's working out well for me, I can tell you. And I got, Mum got me the first book in the summer holidays, I think, just before the second one came out. And then I read it and I was the same age. And I was like, oh, this could be interesting. And then, my PE teacher even said, I read this book the other day. You'd love it. And I was like, nah, I read grown-up books. Age 11. Smuggling a copy.
So you started with the first book, right? You went in order. So you started with the first book and you realized that so you were 11 when you read the first book. That's what you said.
I was first year of high school, yeah.
Wow. So the movies hadn't come out yet. I mean,
no, they came out in year 9 or 10. Same as the Lord of the Rings ones, and I won a competition in year 9 to go to see that one.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. Thanks to this lockdown, we have had all of these, celebrities have had this opportunity to do these, like we are doing, these video chats, and so YouTube is filled with celebrity talking with each other. I came across this one video of Bonnie Wright, because it was on the Phelps brothers channels. I hope that's how you pronounce it. The twins,
Yeah.
they have their YouTube channel. So they were talking with Bonnie, and so in that, I think Bonnie mentioned they had no idea of the reputation of the adult, not adult. Okay, does not sound right. The grown-up actors. The reputation they had, and because they were all nice to these young child actors, but then only after a few years later they realized, I mean, they were working with real stalwarts. Exactly. So I think so. I'm pretty sure they got to learn a lot, and that shows in the later movies they developed into, And now I think Emma Watson. Oh my God. Wow.
Marrying off.
Harry Radcliffe. So Emma Watson. I think she's moved on from the Harry Potter series. She's she's made a career in other big movies as well. Maybe the other child actors.
I've seen there's a lot of them with big careers in TV and theatre, more so than films, I think. So like the guy who played Dean Thomas, whose name has gone from my head, he was incredible in what's it called? How to Get Away with Murder.
Ah, okay.
He was in Sherlock as well, I think. But you see this.
I've seen. Yeah, I remember him.
Neville's actor in loads of amazing British comedy.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure for the initial first few projects,
because they're in the UK. Sorry.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think I've confessed to that as well, because I do not have that much access to. I think the only few British series I've watched is, I think, Game of Thrones, Sherlock. I remember watching Rome. I don't know if that counts, because it was streamed on BBC, so I'm assuming that was the British made series. But it's a pity it ran only for 2 seasons. I like that. That was a good one. So coming back to the actors, I mean, I'm sure they were, for the first few projects at least, they were continuously compared to their Harry Potter roles. Yeah. Anyway, let's segue back to your Harry Potter story. So you were saying, how many books had come out when you first picked your
Just the one.
Just the one. Okay. So you were one of the earliest readers, I mean, of the series, because when I first even heard of Harry Potter, it's also possible because, I mean, the movies hadn't come out yet, so, and the internet wasn't as big back then in the early, and I was still in school, so it was more word of mouth, maybe news traveled. So by the time Harry Potter's reputation trickled into South India, 4 books had already come out. So it was, I think, summer of 2001 or 2002, the 4th book was out, and the first movie was about to come out. Yeah. And the promos were going on in the theaters and stuff like that, and that's when Harry Potter was blowing out in the Indian media, and I was like, "What? Who's Harry Potter?" And I remember making fun because I wanted to be cool as well in school. And it's like, I made fun of the last name. I was like, Potter, and I just those lame jokes. I know, because but for 11-year-old, they sounded pretty funny. And I saw the book. I mean, and that was like, the 4th book is huge.
Huge. I thought it was the first 3 books together, and they released it as like a box set, and then I got the wrong one. I was like, what is this? I nearly sent my granddad back to go and get a different book, and he was like, no, this is the one.
Okay.
Like, okay.
Yeah, I can imagine that, because I saw that book and I was like, there's no way I'm reading that. Okay, it's 600 pages, and have you seen my textbooks? I don't even read those. I mean, those are like 100-page books. So I I never imagined I would ever read, because I think I was at the time I was reading stuff like Goosebumps, which is like 150 page books, which even at my reading speed at the time, I would take about 2 or 3 days to read those one book of Goosebumps. And when I first saw that, and my sister borrowed it from a friend, and it was the summer, so we were at home, and then she finished it. She is the reader among the two of us, and she started, and she's like, you've got to read this. And I was like, no, I'm not reading that.
I'll wait for the movie.
Yeah, right. And then I picked up the book, and then I started, because she wouldn't let it go, and I had to, and I picked it up, and I remember I started reading the book, and I a few chapters, I think the first 4 chapters, I don't know, at least the first 50 pages, there's no mention of Harry Potter. Right? Because it starts with the dream, and they just address him as the boy. And it's like, there's no Harry Potter in this book. What's going on?
It's a lie.
Exactly. And I gave up. And the first movie had come out that summer. And my sister got hold of the tickets or something like that. I mean, we went and watched. And again, this is me. And I mean, I did not understand the accent. Okay. Okay. I'm just going to be honest. I didn't understand a word of what was going on, like the dialogues in the movie. And then I just picked up one line. I think I've mentioned this in one of the other podcast episodes as well. The one line by Maggie Smith, which I think she repeats a couple of times in the movie, because she says to the first year kids when they are in the Great Hall just before the sorting, she comes out and she says, "Follow me." And also again during the Quidditch, the Remember All incident, when Harry catches the ball, and then everyone's gathered around him, and then she comes onto the pitch, and she's like, "Harry Potter, follow me." It's like, that's the only line I caught on, and it's like, I just remember making fun of my sister. It's like, follow me, follow me. I kept saying that to my sister, because that was the whole summer was me making fun of my sister's obsession with Harry Potter. But then, of course, I read the book, the 4th book, and I was hooked because it's Harry Potter. And I remember, and I went back and read the books. But since you have been with the series, and how bad was the wait for the next book?
It was annoying, but I was going through high school, so there's stuff to do. Also, I was reading my way through the Terry Pratchetts at the time and Lord of the Rings. So if I wasn't doing schoolwork, I was reading. So my mum's an English teacher, so she basically, if she teaches a particular author, she gets everything by that author. And then the books that are similar. So I had a huge range of stuff to work from. So I was reading things like Frank Herbert and Arthur C. Clarke and stuff, and sneaking it under the desk in RE. And my RE teacher was like, give me more work then. But yeah, the wait for the last one, because it was put back, that one was a bit longer. I remember by the time that came out, so bearing in mind I was in year 7, so first year of high school, when the first one came out. When that came out, I was already with Neil. So that must have been at least, I'd have been 20. So there was a few years for that last one.
Oh, yeah. The series took from the first book to the 7th book, I think it was about 10 or 12 years. Yeah. That's probably because, between the 4th and the 5th book, I think Rowling took a break from writing. I mean, in the media, it was that. I mean, I remember something about, that's when I learned the phrase called writer's block. Because I think I don't know if she admitted to it, but then the media kept saying that she's going through writer's blocks, and but I think she was going through some stuff in her personal life. Maybe, I don't know. I remember she got married and she had kids and stuff like that, and so there was a gap.
It's really weird at the moment to go, oh yeah, no, she was going through some stuff, and defend her, because I did at the time, but obviously in light of recent remarks, I'm more ready to leave her behind but keep the books.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Yeah, I get that totally. Yeah. Okay, so let's focus on the books. The books as well. Just so okay, you said that you were busy with but for me, only read Harry Potter, so nothing much else to do. So I remember I was always, I think I still have these newspaper clippings because when every new book was about to get released, there would be this hype in the media, right? And the newspapers would be full, like, and with I think the fourth book was when the first death happened. What was that? Cedric. In the books, I mean, there were deaths which had happened in the past, but then in the books, the first death was Cedric Diggory, and then after that, I think during the hype up to the release of the Order of Phoenix, Rowling admitted that there would be yet another death in the fifth book, and I remember there were bets being placed on who would die. And I think in her interviews, she stated that this death was very, it was important to her. And then, so everyone was speculating, was it Hagrid or was it Dumbledore or Dobby? And so there were odds, like who is more likely to die and all that. So I think that continued for every book after that. Because people would speculate who's going to die this time. And
see, I remember the fifth book coming out because we had an inset day, so sort of like a day when you're in school but the classes are off, and you had like seminars on, I think at the time it was choosing university, so would have been in year 11 or year 12. And I had an advantage because I'm a very quick reader. So I got the book that morning at 6 a.m, read it until I got to school, went to the seminar, read it in break, read it at lunch, got to the bit where the person died, and then went, I didn't want to read that in front of people, I'm going to cry now. And then dealt with that. And then half an hour later, someone stole the book off someone else in a free period in the inset day and screamed who had died and spoiled the entire school at once. And I was like, wow, I beat you. I beat you.
I remember something like this happening to me, but that was I think that for me, that was for the sixth book. I wasn't, unfortunately, I'm not that fast of a reader, but then, and I hadn't even got hold of the copy yet. So there were people who had the copies and they would get it to school because obviously they had to save time and they would read it between periods or during breaks or something like that. And one very evil person who had finished the book somehow spread a rumor saying, the best part of the book is page number 6 not something, and I remember, going to, because I could not help myself, and I got hold of a copy and I picked, and then that page is where, and I was so heartbroken that I still remember that day. I'm so sad.
When you go, that's genius, but at the same time, you're like, you're evil, but that's genius. Someone had made a banner. Someone had got the book, looked to the end. Again, I'd managed to read it first because I was obsessed and I'm a fast reader.
Yeah.
And they'd made this banner and they'd hung it over the motorway in Telford and it just said, Dumbledore dies.
Oh, yeah.
Genius, but also you're gonna die.
Also, I think the bigger shock. I mean, Dumbledore dying itself was a shock, but the biggest thing was like Snape kills Dumbledore. That was like the big thing. I mean,
that was a punch to the gut. But then, because my mum was an English lecturer, she just went, if someone starts the last book looking like they're definitely evil, they're not going to be evil in the end. And I was like, oh.
Okay. Oh, that was smart.
Yeah.
Wow. The seventh book, all the plots kind of come together and kind of are tied kind of in haste. Do you feel that? I mean, when you go back and read the book now?
I don't know. I've not read it for a while. I was rereading them.
All the open plot lines, like all the questions that fans had over the years, in the last 50 pages of the seventh book, everything gets answered all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So for me, it felt like there's too much big going on in the last 50 pages of the seventh book, and I would have preferred it, to that things were fed to me slower. But then that's just me.
I think the only problem I had with it at the time was Yeah, the epilogue, because that just felt, because I was really into fan fiction at the time, and it just felt like someone's fan fiction, and I was like, I was,
okay.
because I was quite satisfied with the way things tied up. There were people I wouldn't have killed off, but that's what fan fiction is for. But yeah, what was the book that really annoyed me this year? I read a book this year, and it's brilliant.
Okay.
It's part of a series. It's what's his name? Hodder. And it's the series that starts with the Curious Case of Spring-Heeled Jack, which is a really cool British myth, sort of horror myth. It's like a creepypasta, but from back in the day. And I think it's the 4th or 5th book. I'm not sure. I got it, and I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And I read it, and I went, everyone's dying. Every single character is dying. What is happening? Oh, no, he's going to do a reboot. It was the single most unsatisfying ending I've ever had. I was like, but you can't just break the universe and then restart it. Oh my god. And I still bought the next one, and it's still brilliant. Should probably put a spoiler there. I was like, oh no, I love the characters I've fallen in love with, damn it.
But did you read the Cursed Child books 1 and 2?
No.
You haven't? Okay. Okay. If you read that, I think I mean you'll feel that the epilogue in the 7th book is way better. Because Cursed Child is bad. It's bad. It's coming from me. It's bad. Trust me. I haven't read a lot of books, but I'll say that's. How do you feel about the movies, though?
See, I'm aware that there's a level of contention between myself and the other people in the groups that we're in, because I really like, his name is gone. I like the second Dumbledore. I like the first Dumbledore, but I like the energy of the second Dumbledore, because that's more how I imagined him when I read it. Michael Gambon. Yeah. And I know a lot of people really dislike him. And I only came across the fact that people disliked him last year. I didn't know, because I thought he was amazing. I really enjoyed the films. I was glad they split the last one into 2, although it did feel like a money-making exercise at the time. But I think the best one is absolutely the third one, because the first 2 were really good and they were really faithful to the book, and then the third one they went, let's make a horror movie and let's make it good, and that really set the standard for the next ones. I could watch that one all the time. But then that's my favorite book as well. So I like the Marauders.
I love the first and second movies. I was too young when I watched those, but then I also liked just the way it looks like. It's like a children's movie. It seems like a children's movie, and it was Chris Columbus who directed it. The kids were very young, and there's Quidditch, there's action going on. It's just of course, the later book, the books itself, the theme of because it started getting darker, so it's obvious the movies also start getting darker later on, and all that. But I also would have preferred if Harry Potter was made into a TV series with one book being one season with multiple episodes. That way, I think we would have more of Harry actually attending classes, and because if you see, I mean, they skipped out on, because it's a story which takes place in school, in a school, right? But we don't see the books. The books also have some sort of a story that happens in class with interaction with professors and stuff. But the movie later on, because I get that everything has to be compressed in 90 minutes or 120 minutes, so you leave out. But then, we don't see Harry Potter attending a history of magic class. There's no Professor Binns, there's no Peeves, and
Peeves. I missed Peeves from the movie.
Yeah.
Peeves and Second.
So it's almost like the movies people who watch the movies before watching the books, I feel bad for them, because they almost never see Harry attending astronomy, never see Harry attending, history of magic, and even maybe Transfiguration is only in a couple of movies. And the rest of the series, we just Harry just attends one class, DADA. So
that's it. Basically. And Passions.
And Passions, yes. Or maybe somebody can do it now, like maybe Netflix or Amazon. I wouldn't mind it.
It'd be a cool anime.
Oh, that as well. Yes, true. Yeah. How do you feel about the time turners, though? Do you think it was done well. I mean, the explaining of time travel and stuff. Because again, knowing that you haven't read Cursed Child, I'd say Cursed Child missed time turners completely. They ruined it. I liked it in the books because it, the in the Harry Potter world, time travel is like you go n number of hours in the past, you have to live it again all over again, and so I like thinking of it as in the third movie, third book, third installment of the Harry Potter series. Hermione has in the time a time turner in her possession, right, which she uses for classes. So every time she goes back and an hour, she has to live that hour. So I like thinking of it as Hermione aged more than the rest of the characters because she kept living extra.
That was good because like when you have a mechanic like time travel or in other things like magic, but specifically in this one because there's magic everywhere like time travel, there has to be a cost and there has to be rules. Otherwise it just feels like how do I get out of this? Oh, I know, I'll use time travel. But that was also the benefit of having her use it throughout the book because you sort of, and it's because it's a mystery and you're like, what is Hermione up to? Like, she's being weird, guys. And then you sort of figure it out and you go, oh no, that makes sense. And I think the way she introduced it was really good.
Yeah.
About the same time as I read the third book, I was reading a book by Michael Crichton called Timeline, which introduced a very non-magical world. So
Michael Crichton. Is that the Jurassic Park guy?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's a book called Timeline. It's set, there's an archaeological dig in France and they find a sealed chamber and the dig professor goes missing, and then what they find in the chamber is his glasses. But they are the age of the rest of the site, but they can't possibly be. So they realize he must have gone back in time. And they set this whole thing up with there's a light experiment. It's sort of it's not, the science isn't quite right, but it's sort of bordering on the edge of wormholes. And it takes a great deal of energy to send people back. And actually in the film, the guy who's running the company of time travelers is played by the same actor as Remus Lupin. So it's a really weird film to watch because like it will spoil it not at all to know that guy is evil because he's clearly evil from the start. But it's a bit weird going from that to, oh, there's Remus and he's lovely, but now he's evil. But yeah, the mechanics in that, they were rigid and they had a cost, but they weren't quite rigid enough. And I think the time turners worked really well. I also like the fact that they're regulated.
Yeah, and another thing I like about it is there's limitation, right? I mean, because there are a couple of things. I mean, one thing I already mentioned, how much the time you go back in the past, you have to relive back to the present. You can't, and that's because you can't use a time turner to go into the future. You can only go into the past. We don't know if you can use it in the future, but in the books you cannot. I mean, nobody has. So let's assume that you cannot. So for all the people who are like White and Dumbledore, or anybody, use time turner to go back to when Tom Riddle was like 10 years and just kill him there or something like that, some ridiculous thing. But so who's going to take up, go back all that, and then you can't come back forward.
There is a wonderful fanfic, and I cannot remember who wrote it, where it's the final battle. Everything's gone to hell. Everyone's dying. And Hermione is in a fight with, the Death Eater names have gone from my brain. But anyway, with two Death Eaters. One of them hits her. The other one has a time turner and is trying to use it. She grabs the time turner and gets catapulted back to the Marauder's time. Okay. And has to then deal with all of that. There's quite a few of those, but this particular one was really good. And she just went, well, I can't go back because I can't use the time turner to get there. So I have to go the slow way and I have to leave them clues. And the conclusion that she came to was she couldn't actually change huge parts of history, like killing Voldemort or saving the Potters or Neville's parents. She could only make small changes that would make it easier for them to defeat him in that battle. She could only change stuff that didn't change the whole world.
Right. Okay. I can't think of a segue, but then I'll do one anyway. You said that you you like to read and you loved reading books in your class and it's all that. So that's pretty obvious because you also said that you are a fast reader and all that. So you love reading, right?
Yeah.
But then you also love writing. What's the story there?
I'd forgotten this, but I remembered it when I did my first interview for House of Vines. When I was about 2, I really wanted to write a book. Like I really wanted to write a book, like a picture book.
Okay.
And so I made like a book out of pages, and then I wrote my book, which is obviously just scribbles. And then I gave it to someone to read, and they were like, "There aren't any words here, Lauren." I'm like, "No, but the story's there." So that's probably the first time I was like, "No, I want to write a book." But then obviously I grew up and learned how to actually write. We did a thing in the last year of junior school, so when I was 10 or 11, and you had to write about what you wanted to be when you were older and people that you admired. And it was before Harry Potter came out, because we had to do it in the first year of high school as well. And I remember I did that report on Harry Potter that first year. But in the one before, it was Terry Pratchett, and I said, well, I admire Terry Pratchett because he tells stories, and he tells stories about hope.
Okay.
And that's what I want to do. And then, of course, I got a bit older and went, well, I need a real job. And then for some reason, I decided that real job should be archaeology, which is like really hard to get employment in and very poorly paid. So as a backup, it wasn't ideal. But I love it, and I had a lot of fun with it. And then while I was doing my first degree, I was writing fan fiction in the background.
Okay.
So I started writing. How can I not remember the name of that fic? It was literally the hugest fic. Dreams and False Alarms, which is a rewrite of the third book, basically. And I thought, if I can do a novel-length fan fiction, I can write a real book. So I did that, and then I went, oh, okay. So now I have to write a real book.
Okay.
And then somewhere along the way, I started writing Criminal Minds and Harry Potter, and at some point I started writing The Pink Brick, which became House of Vines, and then so I guess I just sort of decided one day. I thought, well, I'll do it then, but I'm not going to show anyone until it's good enough. So, which is one of the reasons that fan fiction is great, because it allows you to practice your loads of different skills, but you've already got a world set up. So you know as a fan how each character will respond, and you can emulate their voice, which teaches you how to give characters voice and how to express emotion in different ways. And you can play with, if you're doing drabbles, you can play with loads of different styles. And I think I started doing the Criminal Minds fanfic because I want to write thrillers, but I hadn't written a thriller before. So I was like, if I get really good at this, and then I got sucked into a 7th season because I do that. I'll be writing that till I'm 40, but yeah.
So yeah, and it gives me the feeling that I think most budding aspiring writers kind of start on fanfiction.net. Is that that's because your formal training or formal education is in archaeology, right? So did you have the chance to have any sort of formal education in writing, or was that just, you know?
Not so much.
Okay.
Just the stuff that you go through during high school. I took English literature and language at A level, and you know, half of that course was good and half of that course was dreadful, and I ended up sort of half teaching the class. I think I pick everything up from what I read. And I go, oh, this works really well. I wonder if I can do it this way, or sometimes I'll write down if there's a phrase I really like. We were doing a ghost story thing. There's an amazing ghost story workshop by Adam Jackson. I think it's Adam Jackson, from the Book of Light and Darkness. And he does this thing where you write little sections and then you show him, and then he looks through them and stuff. And someone had written something, and it was her neck a tender stem, and I was like, ooh, I like that. So I noted that one down. And you don't then go, oh, I'll use that in my thing, because that's just a stealing. But you can go, so next time I'm thinking about writing something creepy to do with next, I think of tender stems, and then you build language around that and use that language.
You also do these, I don't know if that's the term, is it ghost writing projects on the side, where you write for other people on other people's behalves. So because that I would believe that requires some sort of familiarity with writing formats of how technical papers or whatever these stuff that are published, that they are how they are written.
Different styles.
Exactly.
Knowledge of different styles to work in.
Yes, true. Yeah, that's how I want
Just
to
ghostwrite that line for you.
Yes. So, did you take any courses, or you just kept writing and then you made yourself familiar with it?
I think that's fan fiction, because in fan fiction, it's like tracing a famous painter's picture to learn how to do it. You learn the style and you learn the voice from emulation. So I suppose what I've become is a very good transcriber and a very good mimic. So a lot of the stuff I do, I tend to, because I work for my best friend from high school, actually, which is really cool, for Coleman Editing. Oh, you're editing and ghostwriting these. And I tend to take on the more of the editing now for like essays and stuff, dissertations. It's basically just checking people's grammar and making sure they're saying what they actually mean instead of. But I tend to. I don't know if this is intentional, but I tend to end up with the thrillers. I tend to end up with people's memoirs. And the memoirs are easier because you sort of set the tone yourself. Because what that tends to be is someone's found their grandma's diary that they've kept their whole life and they never knew. And you transcribe that out, and then you start finding the way that person sounds, and you try and match the way they sound in their diary. So in a way, it's a sort of forensic psychology of linguistics. So, and I do a lot of that unconsciously. I'm only realizing that I'm doing it as I'm trying to teach people to do it in workshops and stuff. You listen to the way people speak. So you know how in dialect people will use different words in different ways.
Yeah.
There was a word we came across last night in Vera, Raji, which is a Tyneside word, and I think it means really loud and unpleasant person. Just their local word for that. So you start bringing in dialect and pattern. Where I grew up in Biddulph, where I was born and grew up a bit in Biddulph, I grew up properly in Stafford. Their dialect there is older. It's got the same sort of rhythm as Anglo-Saxon and some of the Norse stuff because of where things were and because of how stubborn that area is. So I could hear, because I moved when I was 6, that the people in Stafford had a different speaking rhythm. Okay. So when I go back to Biddulph, I use that speaking rhythm, and when I go back to Stafford, I use that speaking rhythm. It's the same up here. If you've ever watched a show and you found yourself starting to mimic the accent while you're watching it, or because you've binge watched it and like that's the only sounds you've had, it's like that, but you do it with words.
Okay.
Sort of. It's a really bad explanation.
No, I get it. I noticed that with myself, not exactly with shows, but when I was in school, I would tend to do that with friends. It could have been from an inferiority complex kind of thing, but I would realize that I attempted to mimic people in my class who I kind of felt inferior to, I don't know, or maybe looked up to. But then so I would realize over a period of time that I have started to pick up mannerisms from like the way they speak or their gestures or certain so stuff like that, and then I would be like, oh, okay, I'm doing this and I didn't even realize it. And
it's a safety mechanism, because when I moved from Biddulph, like I can't do the Biddulph accent anymore. So the closest approximation is I can do is this is Mancunian, small Mancunian, than Stokey. But this is a really like recognizable accent. And then you go to Stafford and everyone talks like this.
Okay.
so I learned really quickly that if I didn't want to be noticed, I'd have to slide into that. And when I go back to Stafford, my friends go, God, you sound like you were born in Yorkshire. I'm like, you haven't heard a real Yorkshire person speak.
Okay. So for someone like me who has never been to travel to your country, and I would just say that sounded like Jon Snow and something.
Yeah. He has a sort of northern accent.
Yeah.
I think it's the archaeology thing. There's so much history in an accent. It's
Yeah.
like place names as well. Basically, everyone has named the things in their region the same things. So they will have called it river, but in the way their language came out, it comes out as afon or
Right.
or whatever. Although I think I just said tree rather than river, so Appy will smack me for that later. So the more industrial areas of Britain have really like strong, like Glaswegian, Mancunian, Tyneside accents. They're really strong, they're really loud, and everyone says they're incomprehensible, but they're not. You just have to get your ear in. But they're all places where people had to communicate over really loud mill machines or in the steelwork. So what they're doing is, or what you hear is an exaggeration of certain vowels
Yeah.
in different ways,
Right.
so that you can understand each other in a really noisy context.
Mm-hmm.
So you can sort of, there's an archaeology to the way people speak.
Yeah.
And
From an Indian perspective, I would say I get that. I in a way that I'd say places in India. I mean, the modern names at least are. It's funny because when India was a colony of the British, is when I would say that's the last 300 years, right? That's when maps started being printed, and and of course it was in English, so the English did it, and the people who made the maps, and who wrote down place names and stuff like that, and I would say when they had to consult a local to get the name of the place, and so when they wrote it, it was like what they heard and how they. So okay, I'll give you an example. So like Bangalore or Mangalore or Mysore. So it is like it's actually Mangaluru or Bengaluru, because Uru is like a town in the local language, or Mysuru. But then the English, when they heard it, they wrote it as or, like Mysore or Bangalore. And then we, of course, then we had English education. So they had English schools. They taught us English. So I mean, the next generations we followed. So we say Mysore and we say Bangalore, but then when we switch to the local language, we say Bangalore. But then when we are speaking in English, we say Bangalore. So one of the funniest things is I like this one particular anecdote is Bindi Bazaar, which is actually Bindi in the local language is okra. That's a ladyfinger. That's a vegetable. And Bindi Bazaar, people now, I mean, there's actually a locality or a small place in Mumbai that's called Bindi Bazaar. It's on the map. It's on Google Maps. You can go check it out. When you look at how the name of the place came about, because when the British made maps, it was actually, they wrote in the earliest maps, it's actually the place is called behind the bazaar, is how they wanted to say it. The bazaar is not there. The bazaar is in front of it. The area is behind the bazaar, is how they wanted to say it. But then now there's actually a market there, because people assume that place is Bhinde Bazaar, where you go and buy vegetables. So that's all because of these language, accent differences. And because when the English pronounced behind the bazaar, the local who heard it was like, okay, I heard it as Bindi Bazaar, and I'm going to pass it on.
There's a great story I think it's in one of the Toni Morrison books. It might be The Bluest Eye. I haven't read that one, but it's one that my mum told me when I was reading the other ones. And it's about there was a street, and the doctor lived on the street. Okay. And there weren't street names, so everyone called it Doctor Street. Mm-hmm. And then a few years later, maybe a couple of decades later, the doctor moved out. They're still calling it Doctor Street because you know where that is. Oh, that's the street the doctor used to live on. And the local council were like, well, we're now naming all of them, and this is, I don't know, some other name. Doesn't matter. I was going to say something really English and it wouldn't work. Roehampton Court. So everyone kept calling it Doctor Street and ignored the sign. And they were getting really annoyed because people were using Doctor Street as their address, and everyone was getting confused in the council. Everyone else knew what was going on. So they put up signs saying, this is not Doctor Street. It's not Doctor Street. Stop calling it Doctor Street. And so everyone obviously started calling it not Doctor Street.
Wow.
Because that's the way humans work. Because
Right, yeah.
we're awkward and we misunderstand, and sometimes we misunderstand on purpose out of rebellion.
Yeah. You are now an author, right? So how many books have you written? This is not the first time I've asked this question, have I?
I think I've written 4.
Okay.
I've written a lot. I've published 4, and I have short stories published in another 4. Yeah, 4. I'm working on the 5th.
Okay.
But my next book, I don't know if you can't see there's bunting in the way, but there's a poster up for my next book, but I haven't finished writing that yet.
So for people who are watching this or / listening to this right now, I am going to leave the link to your website in the description, and you can go check it out.
Update website.
Okay. Or maybe if there are Amazon links or something, or maybe the Amazon links are on the website. So
They are, yeah.
So the website is the one-stop solution. So that I'll link it up. And we also have a project of our own in the pipelines. So maybe we can pitch that as well. The theme of the project, the podcast, will be history. So we'll be talking about all things historical, facts and stuff, culture, and so maybe keep an eye out or an ear out for that.
An ear out. I can't promise facts. I can promise stories.
Stories, exactly. History is stories, not just facts. Yeah. So that was the point of that was how we actually came up with it. We thought, we need to tell the stories, not just the facts. So yeah, I am excited for it, although I haven't done much work towards it.
So this is like what, a month and a half after we had this idea, and yesterday I wrote 4 lines and went, that's done.
Oh. I think a month and a half ago is when I wrote my lines.
Yeah.
Which is actually just throwing ideas at each other. It's like, this is how we're going to do it, and then and since then I haven't. But then I'm actually looking forward to just kickstarting it. I think planning is if I keep planning, I'll just plan forever. But then maybe let's go ahead and start it. We haven't thought of a name. I think we did, but we haven't finalized it. And maybe eventually I will announce it later when we release our first episode. Let's talk about hobbies. Do you count gardening as a hobby, or is it your because currently I would say it takes up a chunk of your daily hours?
Well, because it's just something my family's always done, because my great-granddad's had a farm. No, my granddad's grandfather had a farm, so my great-great-granddad. I come from mining stock in Biddulph, but he ran the nursery for the vicarage. So my granddad grew up in this world where you just made everything yourself, and you grew everything yourself. He had his other grandfather grew cactus dahlias. I don't know if you've ever seen a cactus dahlia. They're about the size of a dinner plate, and he used to put one in his lapel to go to church on Sundays. So he would be like, "Hello," this massive flower. So I grew up spending time in the garden and digging stuff up and making stuff right. It's just something that you just sort of do. Like I'm rubbish at cleaning the house, but I'll go out and garden like quite happy. So I suppose it is a hobby, but it's also just part of life.
That's I would assume that's also that's similar to how you picked up your writing skills. I think your gardening skills is self-taught.
Pretty much, yeah. There's some things that I got a couple of gardening books because I was learning at such a young age. There's things like I'll use the example of potatoes. So when I see potato plants in the garden, they've always got earth up around them. So I just assumed you planted them and put a mound over them, and then they grew up through the middle. But what you actually do is you plant them and then earth up as they grow. So all of my family were like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "But this is how yours look."
Okay.
So there's some things that like I've picked up, but I've not really understood. I'm making a blanket. I build doll houses, and I'm in Shipley Little Theatre, so I do some theatre stuff. I love singing, but I don't really right now I can't really join a choir. Also, some drawing, but mostly just making things. I like making things.
Okay.
I like eating things. So I suppose cooking is part of that. I find that an irritating part.
Okay, so before we close, what are your, I mean, what's in the works in the pipeline for the rest of 2020 in terms of books or just plans in general?
Well, we're not doing it's weird, isn't it, thinking about plans this year, because obviously everything's a bit off. I was supposed to be going to New Orleans with some friends from my master's year who live in America.
Okay.
Because I'm setting the next project I want to write in New Orleans. It's going to be a thriller. It's going to be my first thriller, and that's starting to shape up. I'm just finishing the last getaway. I've got about 14 chapters to go. I've had 14 chapters since February. So we'll see. So hopefully, I don't know whether to send that out to agents or just self-publish again, because the publishing world is very subjective.
Okay.
So sometimes it's hard to break in, but I think it's a really good one. So I might give them a go. I don't know. And then there's the anthology that I'm working on now. We brought one out for lockdown with the Superstars. That's free, and that's on the Superstars website. The anthology I'm working on now is the 5th. So we're going to sort of tie this theme of sort of health and safety sign titles up.
Okay.
And I'm going to do a box set, and then we're going to try and pull the art together and do like a coffee table book of artwork for people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then we've got the prompts that got away, which is all 60 of the previous short story prompts, which I'll be working on after Halloween. And then I suppose I should write the sequel to House of Vines, because people keep asking me for it, and I'm 8 chapters in. I should probably do that. So, oh, and a poetry pamphlet. All the things.
all of the things.
All the things.
Yeah, that's a plan.
Yeah.
I'll do all of the things. Okay, so thank you for taking your time to join me in this today. So all of the links will be in the description.
All of the links.
All of the links. Okay, so yeah, I think that's it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
From the real, it's the next episode.
That is one big pile of shit.